Do we have any speaker cards at this time? Okay, so if you haven't wished to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, please make sure that the speaker card has been handed over to the city clerk, Melissa. If there are items that are on the agenda that you also wish to speak on, please do that as same so we can keep that documented and as well as keep the meeting flowing. So at this time, public comment.
Donald Mangle.
Good evening. My name is Donald Mangle, and I reside at 217 Linden Avenue. I recently received this courtesy notice on my truck notifying me that it's illegal for me to park on the wrong side of the street, and violation of this is a $50 fine. Parking in San Bruno, and especially in the streets near El Camino, is a problem. The homes were built at a time when the family had just one car. This is not standard today. Most homes, including my own, have multiple cars. As a result, the enforcement of the parking law should be done judiciously so as not to be a burden or safety issue for the citizens of San Bruno while maintaining general public safety. I have on occasion had to park a block or two from my home due to the lack of parking. I have been a resident of San Bruno for 39 years, and in all that time I have parked, for the most part, on the wrong side of the street, and for what I consider good reasons. First, when I did park in the proper direction, across the street from my house, I frequently encountered an argument with my neighbors. After a bit of time, I decided to avoid the confrontation, and it would be easier for me to park across my own driveway, which was probably illegal, and avoid the confrontation. This was inconvenient for me, as it meant every time my wife used her car, I had to move my truck so that she could leave or return home. But it avoided the fight with the neighbor. Second, parking in the wrong direction facilitated my entry and exit from my vehicle. The few inches of rise from the curb helps me to enter and exit my truck. But more importantly, also a matter of safety, as I don't have to be in the street when the traffic on Linden Avenue, as you know, is not all that wide, and two cars coming from opposite directions cannot pass each other until one pulls over. This is the problem with many of San Bruno's streets, not being in the street, not having my truck door open with passing traffic. Another potential problem is a small but still a real safety problem. Entering and exiting from the curbside is both easier and safer, and you may ask about my passengers' safety, but I rarely have a passenger, as I almost always drive alone. I would say literally less than 1% of the time do I have a passenger. Third, parking in the legal direction leaves me the right wheel in my driveway with no curb to my wheel, with no curb to curb my wheel against. This means I must curb my front wheels in the direction opposite of what it should be. If there were curbs, so that if the vehicle should accidentally roll, the truck will roll against the curb to my back wheels. Last, I do most of my driving to the south. Since its enforcement is a hindrance to the citizens of the city, and it doesn't seem to promote any good reason for doing so, I ask the council why the need to enforce a law that hasn't been enforced for almost 39 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Leslie Emley.
Leslie.
Good evening, Mayor Medina and City Council members. May I begin by thanking you all for your continued support to keep our neighborhoods free from the 5G small cell radiation facilities, be they 40 feet tall, curbside utility cabinets, or designed as garbage can receptacles in our neighborhoods. We would appreciate input from you on the progress of the Verizon versus City of San Bruno and the progress of the 60 cities plus that San Bruno has joined with against the FCC in protecting our citizens' rights and the rights of the city. Lastly, is there any information on the progress of the study group regarding the small cell facilities? There appears to be a lack of independent study information and a lack of documenting those individuals involved in the opinion polls of the 5G small cell equipment in our neighborhoods. Can you shed any light on these topics? Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie, very much. Next speaker card, please.
Chris.
Oh, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Boges.
Good evening, Mayor Medina, Council. From Cunningham all the way up Crystal Springs Road, as you look to the right, people are worried about it. I told them I'd come down and bring it to your attention and the council that you have a hill leaning toward the street of Crystal Springs Road all the way up. The trees are coming down, and from all the rains and the soil, and the roots are coming up. I was wondering if the city of San Bruno are going to take a look at that, trim it back, and have somebody not get killed over trees coming down. And there's also been a closure on that street going up for about 3 days because of tree issues. And it'd be a good idea to rectify that before somebody gets hurt or killed.
Chris, could you just mention the streets again? Just
Crystal Springs, from Cunningham,
I want him to mention it.
up Crystal Springs Road, all the way up. If you look to the right, you could see it. People are telling other people just don't even drive up there because they're so overgrown. And it's to an angle of a hill coming into the street off Crystal Springs. So it needs to be rectified.
So staff could hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next speaker card, please.
Sandra Perez Vargas.
Hello. I wanted to thank,
It's all right.
the city manager for implementing a lot of the, or for enforcing the laws of going in the wrong direction. On my street, I've almost been hit head on many times, and I've also seen some of the meter maids almost get hit on when the car's coming from the wrong side of the road. So on our very narrow street, it has been an issue. So thank you, and thank you for the chief of police for enforcing that. And I also wanted to give thanks to residents Tim O'Brien and Reina Burgos for getting together a program that led to allowing dogs to be walked through our parks. I think it's wonderful. So thank you very much, which just really shows when citizens work together with the city, we can really get some positive things done. Lastly, I want to remind you that it is an election year, so if you're not registered to vote, vote. We have the possibility to make some major changes in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vargas. Anybody else?
Simon Mazzola.
Simon.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I have a few concerns that I wanted to talk with you about tonight, or at least speak my mind to. The first is, as you know, I do have a particular interest in the cell tower status. As Ms. Emley discussed, we'd like an update on that. We were previously informed that the city would be proposing new regulations. Those would go through planning. There would be a chance to comment on them, et cetera. Then it would come to you. I think that's stalled or it's gone in a different direction. I would just love an update as to where that is. Then switching away from that, I have a couple of other concerns. One is about our growth. I know that we passed a statute for San Bruno that allows taller buildings to encourage development. I'm for that. But with one item on the Planning Commission's agenda this week, I'm starting to grow concerned. I don't know the numbers, so I'll only speak to my best estimations. But I know that the former movie theater on San Mateo and El Camino has been replaced. That's a good move, no problems. I know that there's been a multi-story building approved for Huntington and San Bruno Ave. I had some concerns about the parking accommodations there. What's coming up for planning is 425 units at, I think it's called Mills Plaza. With the old movie theater and the one in Huntington and Mills Park, I have to say that's 600 units. I know that the plan that Google has proposed for the redevelopment of that area includes a request for zoning and approval for high-density tall units along San Bruno Ave. I know that coming up is the probable sale of Crestmore and its development. And I have to say, what are we doing with all this development? I'm not anti-development, But if 3 projects I can point to that have been approved, or at least 2 that have been approved, because Mills Park Plaza has not been approved, if that's 600 units, that's just an incredible impact on San Bruno, in my estimation. I don't know full details around it. I think it's too much. If Google gets high development along San Bruno Ave, and whatever happens with Crestmore gets 200 or 300 or possibly 400 units, I just don't know, in a sense, where we're going to put everyone in. Obviously, they're going to be put exactly in those locations, but I don't know that our city can accommodate such an influx. I don't know why that's a good idea for San Bruno, so I'd be interested to know what is the big game plan for that kind of development. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aysen Alatot.
Good evening, council members. I must say, as my first time being here, I like to see you up there, Vice Mayor Davis, as I had cast my ballot for you. I'd like to say that from when that meeting happened at the American Legion several years ago, I really love seeing the Aperture building coming into fruition. Everyone who's working on it is doing an excellent job, and it looks exactly as how I saw it several years ago. I'd also like to echo what the lady in blue had said earlier about the towers and the FCC and the Verizon towers being built. I had heard the result of the protest that some of the neighborhood had, and the fact that you all voted against it. I really appreciate that. It doesn't fall on deaf ears when the community has an outcry like that. I would like to also say that a suggestion. So Redwood City and I believe San Carlos or Belmont have their electric boxes painted. And I think it's really beautiful, and I think we should do it also. And instead of paying someone to draw the art on it, perhaps we can have the Cappuccino students, the Parkside students, or the elementary students submit some artwork, and then they could be in charge of painting those electric boxes. Also, I would like to say that Bayshore Park is getting crummier and crummier, and is probably the crummiest park of all the parks, because the basketball hoop was taken down, and now there's a huge big cement pavement with nothing, and the trees were cut down, so there's no more birds living in those trees that I used to climb up on, and the bulldozer from the sandbox was removed, so that park needs to be uplifted a little bit because it seems like it's been neglected. Also, to echo what the gentleman who first went up was speaking about with the direction of the cars, the vehicles being parked, I understand now that it's going to be enforced. That's going to cause some difficulty, especially for people living in the 5th edition, because those streets are more narrow than streets that are alleys in San Francisco. So that's going to be difficult for all the residents who live over there where I grew up. And in addition to that, there is a particular CSO who has been causing some headache for local businesses. This has been brought to the attention of the San Bruno Police Department. A particular community service officer has been overzealous and too aggressive with giving tickets, where it's causing some headache for business members. And when those parking meters are implemented into the downtown community, I would hope that you will consider to put at least a 20-minute parking zone for those who are loading, because those outrageous tickets are causing headaches. It's not solving any problems. It's bad for business, and it's awful when someone says that's just another nail to add to the coffin.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry for going over time.
Yeah, just wanted to remind you that we've gone over your time.
That's it. Just please consider what I have to say, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
It's nice seeing you again.
Reina Burgos.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. As a resident of San Bruno, I like for you to take and basically have been just probably this week the initiative of sidewalk blocking. I am a pedestrian. Thank you to the city managers. Thank you so much. And city council member, I think you guys designed a sign that is going to have been put in the patch, San Bruno patch. My concern is how else that flyer will be distributed throughout San Bruno. I am a pedestrian. So is my husband. We walk twice a day with Bruno and Bowie throughout San Bruno. And the sidewalk blocking, it is really a problem. So I was thinking if the police can patrol and put that as a warning on the cars that are blocking, not cite them initially, but just remind them not to basically take the sidewalk. And I know there is an issue with San Bruno where some residents have very tiny, small driveway, and we need to work with the residents to see how we can remedy this, because they have the right to park in the driveway, but also pedestrians, we have the right to walk on the sidewalk. So maybe the community have to come together to remedy this. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rana.
Tim O'Brien.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Tim O'Brien, Florida Avenue. And I just want to talk about vehicles blocking the sidewalk as well. The flyer is great that you guys put together. I just hope it's distributed in a way that it will reach the residents, and so they're aware what's going to happen and how unsafe it is as well to block the sidewalk, because there's people in strollers, there's people walking their dogs, there's just people walking, and also wheelchairs. I can't forget to mention them. But just oncoming traffic, we have to steer clear of that, and that's a safety issue. And I wanted it taken seriously, and I think you guys are in the right track in doing that. So I'd like to see that enforced as much as possible. I know it's a challenge for the police department to do that with all the other stuff that they have to address in the city that goes on. So thank you very much. I also want to address the streetscape meeting. I was not able to attend it, and I think a lot of other residents were not able to attend it because of the time. It conflicted with my work schedule, me and my wife's work schedule, and we wanted to have some input on it, and we wish we could have been there. I heard it was pretty good, and that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. Is there anybody else that was in the room that wanted to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Okay. There were a few questions being asked of some of the same things, so I'm going to take the pleasure here and ask staff of some of those. Tim, I can answer one question quickly. Streetscapes, the next meeting is March 30th, Citibank parking lot, and that I believe is on the Saturday. So there will be more opportunity for folks to be engaged, right, and have their input. But there was we had a few speakers in regards to the sidewalk blocking, if that's still continuing, and are we warning? There was also in that same element the warnings that have gone out regarding parking the right way, and how we're educating and advertising. So that'd be my first thing if staff could just address that while we have the folks here.
Sure. Jovan, Grogan, City Manager. I'll ask our police chief to come up and give a detailed, but certainly we are in the middle of enhanced enforcement of sidewalk parking citywide and notices for wrong-way vehicle parking. Certainly one of the things that we have heard loud and clear is that there are real challenges with people using our public infrastructure, our streets for people parking and bicycling, our roads, and our sidewalks that people both use for pedestrian transport, and because our built infrastructure has challenges, people are parking on the sidewalk. But we are a community, we all live together, and parking on the sidewalk causes safety challenges and really impacts a number of members of our community. And so we're doing a number of things to educate the community and really trying to holistically work through them. But the specific questions that were raised are with regard to enforcement that's being handled from the police department for sidewalk parking and wrong-way vehicle parking. And I'll let Ed Barbarini, the city police chief, talk about that.
Chief?
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening. Yes, as you recall, as the City Manager mentioned, over the past several years, there's been 2 items parking-related that have drawn the attention of the city and have been requested of the police department to focus our enforcement efforts on, areas that have historically not been enforced. The first was the sidewalk parking. As you remember, about a year ago, we engaged in a sidewalk parking campaign that included both education and enforcement. That has concluded, and now we continue to enforce the sidewalk parking as best we can. We've implemented the same procedure for parking in the wrong direction, which was the second area of concern identified by the city, and the direction we received to enforce that issue as well. So we've subscribed to the same method that we used before with the sidewalk parking. The first of that was public outreach. We did that via social media, public notices, cable. San Bruno Cable was helpful in producing a video to educate the public, to let them know that we'd be focusing on this area. The second phase of that is a warning program. And what we've done over the last 9 days is we've broken out the city into little parcels and issued warnings to folks that are parking on the wrong side of the street in a fair and equitable manner. We've not focused on any one particular area of the city. We will continue to do that for the remainder of this week. Over the last 9 days, we've issued over 2,000 warning citations or warning notices to folks who are parked on the wrong side of the street. And beginning next week, as part of this plan, which is identical to the plan that we used for sidewalk parking, we will begin to issue citations beginning next week as part of our schedule. So it's the same plan that we used to address sidewalk parking. We've now employed that to address wrong-way parking. This is at the direction of the city based on concerns we've received from folks who are concerned about parking issues. So that's where we're at. I can't address with regard to sidewalk parking, as our parking enforcement officers are out there issuing warning cites for folks parking the wrong way. They have been directed to actually issue citations for those folks who are parked on the sidewalk, because that campaign concluded last year. That education process has been complete, and we've issued about 630 citations over the last year for folks who have been parking on the sidewalk. So I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
No, thank you very much. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is that I've heard a number of people say that this campaign is about generating money. It's not. That is why we began both with warning campaigns, hopefully to correct behavior and have people follow the law based on warnings. It is not the city's intention to generate revenue by issuing citations. It's actually the thing that we like doing the least. So.
Okay, thank you. And then I just want one other topic, maybe very quickly, in regards to the cell tower. Those that were just for updates, or where are we at on that? If there's something very quick that maybe could be updated, since we have the folks here.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. There will be a report at the next Planning Commission meeting on an update on both the ordinance and a bit of the status of the litigation, although that's certainly a matter of public record. And that's anticipated to come back to the City Council in April.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.